Hopefully you guys are doing okay. I know my absence has been once again noticed, but I do thank all the folks who gave me support during my trying time. But anyways, I ended up wanting to do a little more of a chilled out mod pack, so I decided to create my own to reflect more with those interests. So I figured while I'm going to build a home, we'd read through a few HOA horror stories as suggested by my partner. I feel like I'm going to implement this just so I can have it done and said over with. But whenever I'm actually reading the story, just so there is a key difference, I will be using a nice fancy accent. I will use it this video and let me know if you guys like that, and I'll continue to do so. Anyway, this first story comes from Mayama on the r/fuck HOA subreddit, and it is titled Crashing Out on My HOA's Manager While Being Halfway Around the World. Debated on whether I should keep this private, but due to the sheer stubbornness of the other party, I'm posting this to vent. Let's give the statement above some context. I, F26, purchased my townhome November of 2025. Since it was the first time I ever got to live by myself, I didn't think much about the personal protective measures, such as home security systems, cameras, or blackout blinds. It was all well until one beautiful night in February this year. At 2 a.m., I was woken up by some noises made around the house, someone trying to open my patio door, and succeeding, and them scoping around my house. I was completely defenseless, and my pet cat was already hiding under the bed, calling the cops only for them to say it could have been some pites making that noise. But that was the start of my venture into outdoor cameras. Mind you, I discovered a set of footprints facing my living room patio when it snowed around 3 to 4 weeks prior. Odd, but I never connected the event until the police left. My dad, in fact, ordered me a wired camera that also acts like a porch light. The light is indeed quite bright, enough to startle anyone unsuspecting and those looking to snoop around. The camera is motion activated, and once on, it records for the next 2 minutes. All was well until now, which is exactly 2 days ago. My HOA manager, let's call her Deb, emailed me that I needed to replace the current porch light, as it doesn't match the rest of the townhomes in the cluster, color or model. Valid. The only problem? I'm out of the country, and will not be back to uninstall this baby until I'm back in the country. I asked if it was okay, and she agreed. However, things start to go downhill from here. The afternoon of June 21st, I received a notification from my camera. In the clip, a random kid was seen opening my storm door, attempting to open my front door, and trying to look inside my house not once, but twice. This might sound silly to most of you, but with my previous break-in experience, seeing a random kid appear at my front door didn't feel very pleasant. At the same time, Deb sent me a series of emails that I was unable to reply to as I was on the flight, asking if I could give her the permission to have someone disconnect my porch light/camera. Apparently, my camera/light has been turning on and off throughout the night, disturbing a lot of people. Checking my camera's memories, I could see that the porch light turned on only once the night of June 20th at 9:17 p.m. A group of teens walked by, flicked the camera off, and walked away. I was puzzled because my light didn't turn on multiple times throughout the night, so I emailed Deb back and said exactly that. I also tried to turn off the light remotely, but couldn't do so without turning the entire camera off. Because of the random kid snooping around my home, I don't feel comfortable turning the camera off for 3 weeks until I'm back. I asked Deb to please not touch my porch, and to tell the neighbors, if worst comes to worst, to please wait until I get back. I am 3 days into my vacation. Deb remains stubborn, with her last email detailing how the HOA wanted me to turn off the light right now, and to keep it off until I return. Her response unleashed a total of 8 passive-aggressive emails, reiterating what I can't do about the porch light remotely, and how I'm still trying to find someone to help resolve this. I'm currently awaiting her reply, and I will give an update. I understand that the light can be a nuisance, but again, the only time it was recorded to be on after I left my house is June 20th. It only activates at night, and my camera has not been triggered since June 21st, the kid snooping around. The camera has been on for 4 months with no complaints from anyone, and suddenly now it's such a big deal and such a disgrace that it needs to be turned off ASAP. I just don't understand why they're making such a huge deal over a porch light. I was thinking that the kid caught on tape June 20th was my new neighbor's kid, who bought a house in the same cluster this month. I never knew anyone bought a home until now, let alone meeting them. The fact that nobody had a problem with my light now aligns up with the new neighbors move-in. It can all just be speculation, but does it make sense for a random kid to show up out of nowhere and start specifically going to my house to snoop around? My friends were shown the clips, told the story, and are suggesting me to report the snooping to the cops and have it in a record, though most likely they won't be doing anything. First time getting involved with an HOA. Never again. God, I am infuriated. That it wasn't a hard read through, but it just bugs me that I'll talk about the police first before I talk about Deb, because god damn it. A police's job is to protect their community, and what it sounds like to me is that they are calling you crazy, and that it feels also to me like they're acting like you're wasting their time, when again, their job is to protect the community that they serve. Holy moly. And then there's Deb. Oh god, I could say so much about Deb here. Deb doesn't understand you're not even home, that you're not even in the country, and that you cannot do anything. I know this post is over a month old, and the person who posted this is probably off of their vacation now, and I hope everything is okay with them, but I just hope that those kids you also mentioned aren't still skulking about. So, yeah, that's my personal thoughts on this. Let's move on to the next one before my complaining about this gets too long. I'm in Southern California, in an upscale suburban neighborhood that is mostly filled with retired people. And the HOA has been a nightmare since my family moved here in 2022. Before we bought the house, I specifically checked the HOA rules because I legally grow cannabis under California law. The rules said it was allowed as long as it was an out of view area. I even asked the HOA what counted as an out of view. They confirmed my backyard qualified and was outside the HOA's authority. Ever since we moved in, they've found reasons to harass us over just about everything. At one point, they even got the school bus stop moved over 100 meters farther away so my kids, who are basically the only children in the neighborhood, besides one other family, had to walk farther. When I asked why, the HOA representative actually told me school buses create a disruptive and unharmonious environment because of the noise and because they bring kids in from other neighborhoods. Earlier this year, I received a notice ordering me to remove my 6 cannabis plants because they supposedly lowered the surrounding property values. I wrote back explaining the plants were in my backyard, which the HOA itself had already confirmed was not a public viewing area. I had never heard another word and assumed it was the end of it. Then, last Wednesday, I was served with a lawsuit seeking $48,750 in fines, $250 per day for 195 days for failure to remove prohibited public view vegetation. The craziest part is that they attach copies of several warning letters they claim I ignored. Every single one was addressed to 14218 instead of my address, 14281. The other house is vacant and a few streets away. I hired an attorney thinking this would be an easy mistake to clear up. When my attorney called the HOA manager, she admitted they had my correct email address the entire time because I had already responded to the original notice months earlier. She even found my email while they were on the phone. Her response was basically,
The board already voted to proceed, so you'll have to explain it to the judge.
I also asked why they suddenly considered my backyard to be in public view after previously telling me it wasn't. Their answer was that the plants were visible on Google Earth. They just kept repeating that it was between me and the judge now. I still don't understand how they think they can rack up nearly $50,000 in fees over 6 plants that nobody is standing outside my property could even see. My wife thinks the judge will throw out the case as soon as they see all the notices were mailed to the wrong address. I'm hoping she's right, but I've already had to hire an attorney just to defend myself. Has anybody ever dealt with an HOA taking something this far? That was a bit of a shorter one, but I still have some things to say. $50,000, nearly $50,000. I mean, that's an insane amount. $250 for 195 days. Holy moly. They're just reaching at this point because I think they just want to make some money off of somebody because I guess the fees aren't enough from all the little houses in their, I guess, jurisdiction. But they already told you the backyard is an out of view area and they don't have any authority on it. I think you should trust your wife though. I do think the judge will throw it out. You just gotta, present your evidence, especially with the whole them sending all the warning letters to a very clearly vacant address as you had stated. That's all I really have to say. But yeah, let's move it on to the next one. I live on a farm that was created over 170 years ago. We have a couple of lakes across from us that have mostly cottages, but a handful of year-round residents. A few years ago, a douchebag came to my door amid the "no trespassing, no soliciting, I don't give a fuck who you think you are, this means you" signs on my driveway. He tells me,
We're forming an HOA.
I cut him off. Good luck with that, and goodbye. He said,
Just hear me out as a neighbor.
I said, you have 2 minutes starting now.
In order for us to form an HOA here, we need the earliest homesteads in the area to sign on, and yours is by far the oldest, and under the current regs, we need you on board.
I said, sucks to be you now. Will you please fuck off? This clown doubled down and told me how it would be all unicorns and rainbows if we just had an HOA to
keep things under control.
I said I don't legally even have to cut my grass, and there's zero chance I am giving you wealthy losers any say in what I do here. If you don't like my operation now, you won't like it when I switch to hogs, which I would do despite you guys. If you need my permission to start one, that's fine, but don't expect me to be any part of it, nor pay any attention to whatever rules you make up. I am doing fine and don't need Big Brother and an HOA telling me how to live. So if you do, that's fine, but I need no part of it. Thankfully, my buddy stopped by, who was a sheriff's deputy, and I said, just in time, this jackass is trying to get me to join an HOA and refuses to leave. Can you help him understand the word no? I had him trespassed off the property. 3 other neighbors told me they appreciated me stopping their plans. I don't get how they think they can force someone who owns their own home, had no HOA when they bought the house, to join one. We have townships that are essentially an HOA, but with more legal oversight and proper elections. Some townships here are worse than other HOAs. But I chose this location because I mentioned I don't even need to cut my grass. It doesn't matter if I want to keep an old car or 10 even behind the bar. If it can't be seen from the road, the township doesn't care. I saw this guy setting up for some sort of party at his place a couple weeks later, so I went and got a trailer of liquefied hog manure from a friend who does run hogs. and sprayed my field across from him, which happened to be upwind from him. Apparently it worked because he sold his place 3 months later. Just my fuck you and your HOA story. Now, there are two extra edits to this, but I'll sum it up like this. They don't know why they wanted the original homesteads to sign on, and they didn't care to look into it. And I guess some people thought they had nothing better to do, and were just trying to get karma, which is a point system, I guess, on Reddit. I don't know. I didn't really look into it. And then that was their first edit. Their second edit is entirely hilarious to me, and I do think I'm going to read it for you guys in a posh voice. Like I guess the voice I've been doing is posh, but anyway. Edit 2. I know some of you want to claim this is fake or bullshit. That's fine. If you look at my North 40, that is the field upon which I grow my fucks. Behold, it is barren. Thus I have 0 fucks to give thine nor thou, especially for your opinion. It's too late in the season to plant, so don't plan on me having any fucks for the foreseeable future to give, because next year also isn't looking so good either, okay? So kindly fuck off with that silliness once more. Thanks. I I just find that so funny. But in regards to what you have written, I'm glad there's some people out there who do stand their ground, especially in the case like you. You stood your ground, you're like, fuck off, leave me alone, I ain't gonna join your HOA, blah blah blah. And then to see him try having like a party or anything and live there regardless, I guess still trying to convince other people to maybe start an HOA. And then you just said, fuck you, I'm spraying my field, which, if you've ever smelled any kind of manure, hog, at least for me, because I've smelled it before, it's horrible. My nose burns. And I hate it. I'm so happy to see, whether it was an intentional or not, 3 months later, he sells his house or his place and then I guess moves away. It's funny to me. I love seeing when karma hits the enemy of a story, if you will, or antagonist, I guess. So this next one comes from Alarm Stranger 895 and is titled HOA Management Told My Buyer I was notified several times about violations but can't show me a single email as proof, and now wants me to pay a $200 fine to replace a deadbolt my buyer is throwing in the trash. HOA management told my buyer I was notified several times about violations but can't show me a single email as proof, and now wants me to pay a $200 fine because the deadbolt was the wrong color for 2 years. I'm finalizing my condo sale, closing in 3 weeks, and the HOA management company directly contacted my buyer about violations and told him I had been notified multiple times and hadn't paid the fine or fixed the incorrect deadbolt color. I found out about these violations from my agent, who found out from the buyer's agent, who'd found out from the buyer. HOA management emailed him directly. I asked the HOA repeatedly to show me proof of those notifications, emails, and or letters. Ignored every single time. Not one email produced. But they say I still have to pay the $200, which will be deducted from my proceeds at settlement. The way they handled it made my buyer unhappy. He didn't know you get fined so easily for violations, and I had to agree to cover a special assessment later this year. My agent was originally going to negotiate, so leverage gone. And now they want me to pay a $200 fine for having had the wrong deadbolt color for the past 2 years. Supposed to be a nickel, mine was a light brown. Let me be clear, my buyer has already told me he is replacing that deadbolt the second he moves in. They want me to pay a $200 fine for a deadbolt that'll be in a dumpster days after closing. But we're okay with the wrong color for years. It is generally one of the most absurd things I've encountered. I dressed a deadbolt color the evening I found out, which was late last week. Painted it nickel, the correct color, but now they want me to replace the deadbolt as painting over it is unacceptable prior to sale and pay the $200 fine. When I pushed back, they told me they are not responsible if the buyer walks, and that I have to pay the fine. There was no proof of notification, tanked my negotiation, and a $200 fine for a deadbolt nobody wants. Is there any recourse here? I want the $200 violation waived, and the HOA refused, even saying I'm lucky it's only 200. That is truly absurd to me. Over, I'm guessing it's just a single deadbolt and not multiple or anything like that. But they're throwing it away. Why deal with the fine if the new person, I guess, is going to be replacing it? It's so annoying that they're so persistent with it too. Even being as like rude to be like, you're lucky it's only 200. Like, dude, fuck that. I'd never want to live in an HOA because they can complain about the smallest things and make up like the stupidest reasons to give you a fine or a fee for like some stupid violation, like your grass is half a centimeter too tall or something like that. I don't know. Hello, it is post editing Omnomi here. I just wanted to interject really quick. I'm about to have some stuff in my inventory that I didn't have before. I did go on a small mining trip because I did need extra materials, i.e., iron or anything like that, just so I could have more tools. So if you see anything that I didn't have before, that's why. Alright, post Omnomi, editing Omnomi going away now. Bye bye! So I was scrolling through the Fuck HOA subreddit, and I saw this one name pop up on more than a few occasions. Slothy McGillicuddy, and they have a few things here. I decided to look at the posts on their account, and apparently they are an HOA president. So as I read this next part, you might hear me figuring stuff out as we go along. But there are a lot of pictures too, so I will show those as they come up. But I think this is interesting, and I kind of want to share this with you guys. So let's take a read through the Slothy saga. Alright, so let's begin this little series, little saga, if you will. The Slothy saga. Um, so let me begin. The first one is titled HOA President Might Have Shot Herself in the Foot. We have an HOA president who is drunk with power and is terrible. Ever since we had an election to update our covenants, I have been trying to get information from her, and she is resisting everything. Our annual meeting is this Thursday, so I have been reading the bylaws to make sure I'm ready with all of my questions. I noticed that our bylaws state that there is only to be one member at large. I'm good friends with one of my neighbors who became a member at large at the last annual meeting because she was also unimpressed with the president's shenanigans. I asked my neighbor how she became a member at large, and she said that at the end of the last annual meeting they asked if anybody wanted to. She raised her hand, and that was that. No voting to elect her. When I realized what the bylaws stated, I looked at the latest newsletter we had received, and it showed 5 members at large. My neighbor stated at the last meeting in March, the board approved 2 new members at large. I emailed the president asking about this. She doesn't know I'm friends with said neighbor, so I didn't mention anything about what went on at the last meeting. She ignored my question and then finally sent out an email to the entire neighborhood. All of a sudden, my neighbor was listed as an interim member at large. Texted my neighbor, and she said she had no idea she was interim, or even what that meant. The president's email stated, at large member per the bylaws, page 4, section 1, is 1 member. Additional at-large members shall be known as interim position, which is a non-voting position. These positions are for those who express interest on how the HOA and board works and become familiar with respecting the value of each homeowner, our covenants, and bylaws. The neighbor said no one had ever said she was in a non-voting position. Neighbors said no one ever said she is in a non-voting position, and that she has in fact voted at multiple board meetings. Our bylaws state the books, records, and papers of Meadow Ridge Homeowners Association Incorporated shall be subject to inspection by any member at the regular annual meeting held in April. The bylaws of Meadow Ridge Homeowners Association Incorporated and any amendments thereto shall be available for inspection by any member from the secretary at the regular annual meeting held in April. I asked the president if all the records would be available for inspection at the upcoming meeting, and she told me minuets of open homeowners associating meetings for 2025 will be given as per Meadow Ridge annual meeting procedure. These minutes have already been shared with the members by email. The board has also had requests to update the minuets because some of the items were left off, but they refused to edit them and say they are complete. There's so many other issues with this board, if no one else does. I'm nominating myself for president. Is to get her out. This meeting should be interesting. Fuck HOAs. We have our first of a few updates here for the Slothy Saga after the original post. I will put pictures on screen, but this conversation, specifically this email conversation, was back and forth with the president when the poster requested the documents to review at the annual meeting that was being held the day after they posted this. And apparently they think she might be projecting with the last message or email. So let's take a look at those. So this first screenshot here is the poster, I guess, speaking to the president. It goes, "Dear Board, I am writing to formally request access to inspect and copy certain association records." And then it mentions the law, or I guess rule or whatever, in regards to them being able to. And then it mentions a bunch of files, which, because of the length, does get cut off at the end. But the second screenshot, which is here, shows you all of what they were trying to get access to. And they were being very respectable. They wanted to be let known back in the next 5 business days if they can or cannot inspect the records. And they were totally fine with covering any costs associated with copying. And they're just giving appreciation and, in my opinion, being really respectful towards them. Because not having respect doesn't really get you anywhere in terms of trying to ask or get to look at somebody. And then this next picture or screenshot here is the president, I guess, responding. So basically, the president is like, "Hey, here's X, Y, and Z. You can look at it, or you already have a copy of this, or blah blah blah." But basically, I or she is getting the information that she requested, and basically he'll get them after the annual April meeting on Thursday, April 30th, 2026. And they'll also be available to any homeowner that wants to go and attend the meeting. They also list the price and for copying, I would assume. Yeah. After that, the poster responds with the following. "Hi, President. The bylaws state the records are to be available for inspection at the annual meeting. Can you please clarify why they will not be available during the meeting as outlined? Additionally, you indicated that the records would be available for other homeowners to inspect. Please explain how the referenced fees would apply in that situation. Since inspection is an individual member right, I would not expect one homeowner to be responsible for the cost associated with providing access to others. I would appreciate your clarification on both points. Thank you." I say that's a really respectable response. I don't know about you guys, but I see nothing wrong with the poster. Poster's being real nice. Next one is the president's response, basically saying that they requested a copy of 3 years of documents and would pay for the copies. I guess the president pays for their own copies, and in the response is as follows. In your April 20th email, you requested a copy of 3 years' documents. And you would pay for your copies. That's great. I pay for my own copies, and my 2 copies will be used for others to review, and then they will be returned for my records and HOA use. The members attending will be given the opportunity to decide to stay or leave for the time it will take to go over all the documents, which you have requested, and given time to ask questions. The church has agreed to our using the building for our HOA meeting until 7:30. Any time past that is an additional $35 fee which will be covered. Time management is important. Thank you for understanding. Sincerely, the president. And then they respond by going, the bylaws that require association records be available for inspection at the annual meeting. Providing them only after the meeting does not meet that requirement. I'm requesting that the records be made available for inspection before or during the meeting so members can review and be fully informed prior to voting. Thanks. And then the president responds, the documents will be at the meeting tomorrow. The truth is there in the documents. What do you have to fear? Very interesting. That's all that's in that screenshot set, by the way. But there is a secondary update. And hopefully, if you need to pause to go read those screenshots, feel free. But I'm just going to go ahead and read through the rest of the updates as well. Alright, here's the second update after the screenshots. The meeting was a shit show, but I came out triumphant. I was elected the new president. My neighbor friend was elected secretary. We tried to get a third in as VP, but the board stonewalled him. Someone nominated him, and the first board said he couldn't run because someone needed to ask to nominate him before the meeting. Mind you, I had just been elected president, and they didn't mention that when a neighbor nominated me. I also had emailed asking about the election procedures, and that was never mentioned. Then they said that he wasn't a member in a good standing. He just recently paid his dues that he was a few years behind on. They said that he needed to apply to the board to get back in good standing after paying his dues. He said that he had emailed the treasurer and president about it, but they didn't respond to him. I asked where that was stated because I hadn't seen that in any of my documents. They told me it was in the Articles of Incorporation. Luckily, I had gone to our county website and downloaded them. The document was different from mine. It seems that at some point the Articles of Incorporation had been amended, but there was no record of it with the county. The guy we were wanting to vote in as VP is one who had been consulting an attorney about suing the board. He told me that his attorney that had discovered this would send me what information he had, so that's something I will have to dig into. But back to the meeting. When it was time for an open discussion, I had an entire list of things I wanted to discuss, but I started with the interim member at large issue. I recently saw our bylaws that we are only supposed to have one. Last year we had 5. No mention of interim anywhere in the documents. However, when they gave me a packet of records to review, last year's annual meeting minuets had the word interim handwritten next to the extra members at large. So I asked why these minuets were different from what they had provided previously. The president told me that it was the strangest thing, but when she was typing up the minuets, her computer kept rejecting the word interim. I had asked her to clarify, and she repeated it. So you're telling me that any time you try to write interim, your computer would just delete it? Yes. I told her I found it very suspicious that an interim member at large has never been mentioned in any documents I had. But when I asked her about it in an email last week, all of a sudden this happens. I can understand if the board wasn't aware. There were multiple members at large before she was president. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you own up to it, make it right, that goes a long way towards building trust. But to lie about it is not acceptable. At that point, her husband, who was an official member at large, admitted that they didn't know. but she kept on insisting that her magical computer didn't like the word interim. Interesting because she had sent an email last week to everyone where the word interim was mentioned multiple times. I guess her computer got over its beef with the word. I asked for financial documents to review and got the same thing they had always provided. The treasurer held up a bank statement saying he could show that the balance matched. I asked if they could provide detailed general ledger so we could see the individual payments. He said he has never provided that, so I asked again if they could. He didn't really give me an answer on that. There was a $700 payment last year to an attorney who helped draft the amended covenants. And when asked who the attorney was at last year's meeting, they refused to answer. We suspect that the current VP, who is an attorney, is the one who was paid to do it, and that's why they don't want to tell us. But now that I'm president, I will find out. Even after all of that, I still barely won. There was 21 households at the meeting. 9 voted for the previous president, 10 voted for me, and 2 abstained. If I hadn't insisted on getting the records to review during the meeting, none of this would have happened. My next door neighbor voted for crazy previous president, so that might get a bit awkward. So now it seems that there's a lot of shit that I need to clean up. But I felt like tonight was a win. Edit. I forgot to mention something about the interim member at large. My neighbor, who's supposedly interim, told me that she had voted at the board's meetings. I asked if she had during the meeting tonight, playing like I didn't know, and she said yes. The president then said that even if she voted, her vote didn't count. I asked if they told her that. They said no, because they didn't want to hurt her feelings. Absolutely ridiculous. A bunch of my voice recordings got corrupted, so I am just going to summarize the ones that did get corrupted, because there is a lot to go over. So essentially, after becoming the HOA president, he discovered years of mismanagement. The previous board blocked a homeowner from running for vice president using a rule that actually doesn't exist in their governing documents, keep records, including like ballots or documents they claim to rely on. They suddenly disappeared. In quotes, we all know that. You know, they're not. Yeah. Since taking over, uh, he's found that they're also having inaccurate meeting minuets, no financial records, just about, and poor document retention, I suppose. They've been correcting any records, digitizing documents, improving transparency, and working to rebuild the trust while actually still facing opposition from the former president. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the next update. So I held the first board meeting and tell the board that we need to finish the election. The former vice president tried to argue with me and said we did finish it, and they were put in by acclamation. I said that absolutely didn't happen, so then the VP made a motion to finalize the election and they would remain in their positions. It passed 3-2. The 3 positions who were in question basically voted themselves in. Once the neighborhood found out this happened, some started sending emails asking why the board decided to finish the election without having members vote. So I scheduled a special meeting for everyone to discuss. Our bylaws give the president authority to call a special meeting at any time, and any business can be conducted during that meeting. The meeting was last night, and it was the biggest turnout I have seen. We have 75 households in the neighborhood. Average attendance of the annual meeting is around 8, with 5 of those being board members. Last night, there were 35 households present. So we start the meeting, and the member takes a motion to finish the election. The VP immediately starts arguing, saying I'm not allowed to hold an election without adequate notice to the membership. The former president says the covenants don't allow it, so I ask her to show me exactly where that is. She couldn't. I asked her at least 4 times. She kept shuffling papers around but couldn't find the exact text because it doesn't exist. Then they tried to say that I was disenfranchising all the members who couldn't attend by holding this vote. I responded that they disenfranchised everyone by voting themselves in on their own. We finally got around to a vote on whether we should finish the election, and the majority wanted it, so we started with the VP. I put forward the VP as soon as the board's nominee, and then opened the floor for nominations. A resident was nominated, then we held a vote. The previous VP lost. The vote was 17 to 18. After he lost, the treasurer and a member at large resigned. Residents were nominated for the positions and were voted in. I don't think I have heard from the last from them, but as of now, we have a brand new board. We have to clean up all of this mess. There are zero records of anything. I asked the former president one last time for her copy of the Articles of Incorporation that she read from the annual meeting. I have been trying to get this from her since April. She told me she has 3 piles of HOA documents on her dining room table, and she just doesn't have the time to go through them. I said I would be glad to go through them and that those HOA records are now property of the board. She then said there is no way for her to get them to me because she can't lift over 10 pounds. So I said I would come and get them. Then she said she just doesn't have the time, and it's not a priority for her, so she doesn't know when she'll be able to get them to me. She even tried to play the dead mum card, and said she hasn't even had the time to grieve her mother. The board has never had an attorney on the retainer, which is one of the first things I'm discussing with the board. So this is the last update in the series from 16 days ago, and apparently there's a little email here I'll let you guys read, but here goes. After our special meeting on the 10th, she sends me this email. During the special meeting, I announced that I had recordings of the annual meeting held in April and our first board meeting held in May. She claimed that I was breaking the law by recording. We are a one-party state. There was no expectation of privacy at a public board meeting. When I let them know I had a recording, the vice president said I had lied to him about recording it. What actually happened during our board meeting in May was he asked me if a certain resident had recorded the annual meeting the year before. He knew this guy recorded it because he announced he was recording. I wasn't at that meeting. The VP said I had a fiduciary responsibility to the board to let them know if I knew about this guy recording. I don't think they understand what fiduciary means, but I responded that I had heard he had a recording. But I wasn't at that meeting, nor have I seen any proof of a recording existing. So that's what she's referring to when she said I lied about it. Holy moly, that was something. I have a feeling ex-HOA president still wants the power, but she's not getting it anytime in the near future. Hopefully, you're able to solve any other mysteries that there is and get all those documents that you need to find, OP. I really enjoyed that, and I hope you guys enjoyed me reading as well. With that said, I also hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you guys soon, and I promise this time, for real, I will not take this long to make another video. See you guys in the future.